Commander Thelvos stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the blue planet that filled the main viewing screen. Earth. He had read the ancient reports dozens of times during the long journey here. 800 years ago, his people had visited this world and found it dying. The humans were killing themselves slowly with pollution wars and greed. The Vakreen scouts had marked Earth as a lost cause and moved on to more promising worlds. Now Thelvos had returned, expecting to find ruins and silence. Instead, his sensors showed something impossible. The planet was alive. More than alive, it was thriving. The oceans were clean. The atmosphere was rich and healthy. Forest-covered lands that the old records showed as deserts. It made no sense. "Sir, we're detecting orbital structures," his second officer reported. Her voice carried uncertainty. "Hundreds of them. They're arranged in precise patterns around the planet." Thelvos leaned forward. The Vakreen Empire had conquered 73 worlds across the galaxy. He had personally overseen the submission of 12 primitive civilizations. He knew what a dying world looked like, and this was not it. "Try all communication frequencies," he ordered. "Standard greeting protocols." The communication officer worked his console for several minutes, then shook his head. "Nothing, sir. All frequencies are open, but no one is responding. It's like they're ignoring us." Or watching us, Thelvos thought, but did not say aloud. He had learned long ago that species did not ignore visitors from space. They either welcomed them or attacked them. Silence was something else entirely. Silence meant planning. "Prepare a landing team," he said finally. "We'll go down to the surface." The old records indicate a region called the Korean Peninsula. It had large cities. "We'll start there." 3 hours later, Thelvos led a team of 20 Vakreen soldiers through the landing shuttle's doors and onto Earth soil. He had expected ruins, broken buildings, maybe scattered bones. Instead, he found himself standing in a forest. Not a wild, chaotic forest, but something carefully arranged. The trees were healthy and strong. The air smelled clean, almost too clean. Small animals moved through the undergrowth without fear. "Sir, according to the old maps, we should be standing in the middle of a city," one of his officers said, checking her scanner. "A place called Seoul. It had 10 million inhabitants." "I can see that," Thelvos replied, turning slowly. There were no buildings, no roads, no signs that millions of humans had ever lived here. Just endless green forest stretching in all directions. They walked for an hour, following what their scanners indicated was once a major highway. The road was gone, covered by soil and grass, but here and there Thelvos could see hints of the past. A piece of metal jutting from the ground. The corner of a concrete foundation. Shapes that might have been statues now covered in moss. Then they found the monuments. They rose from a cleared valley like black teeth biting at the sky. Huge structures made of polished obsidian, each one 30 meters tall. Thelvos approached the nearest one carefully, his weapon ready. As he got closer, he could see writing carved into the stone. Not just one language, but many. He recognized some of them from the old records. Korean, English, Mandarin, Spanish, dozens of others. But it was not the languages that made him stop breathing for a moment. It was the names. Thousands of names carved into the black stone. Millions of names. They covered every surface of every monument. "What is this place?" one of his soldiers whispered. "A graveyard," Thelvos answered quietly. He ran his hand over the carved letters. "These are the dead, the ones who died when their world was collapsing." His communication officer was scanning the monuments with her equipment. "Sir, I'm counting 47 of these structures in this valley alone. If each one has this many names," she paused, calculating. "That's billions of dead, sir." Thelvos nodded slowly. So humanity had suffered as the old reports predicted. They had died in vast numbers. But then who had built these monuments? Who had restored the planet? Where were the survivors? The sun was setting when they finished examining the valley. Thelvos ordered his team to make camp near the monuments. As darkness fell, he noticed something strange. Lights were appearing across the landscape. Not city lights, these were different, smaller, moving. "Sir, we have contacts," his security chief reported, his weapon powered up. "Multiple contacts approaching from all directions." "How many?" Thelvos demanded. I can't tell, sir. The scanners keep changing the count. Sometimes it says 20, sometimes it says 200. The readings don't make sense." Thelvos stood and activated his own weapon. His team formed a defensive circle, all of them facing outward into the growing darkness. The lights came closer. They moved through the trees like floating stars, silent and steady. Then the light stopped, forming a circle around the Vakreen team. For a long moment, nothing happened. Thelvos could hear his own heart beating in his chest. Sweat ran down his back despite the cool night air. One of the lights moved forward, separating from the others. As it approached, Thelvos could finally see what it was. A human. A young man, walking calmly through the forest with some kind of light device in his hand. He was dressed simply in clothes that looked handmade. He carried no visible weapons. The young man stopped 10 meters away and smiled. When he spoke, his words were in perfect Vakreen standard language. "Welcome to Earth, Commander Thelvos," the human said. His voice was friendly, almost cheerful. "My name is Jihoon. We've been expecting you." Thelvos felt ice form in his blood. The Vakreen had never shared their language with Earth. The first contact 800 years ago had been brief and minimal. There was no way this human should be able to speak Vakreen standard, let alone know his name. "How do you know my language?" Thelvos demanded, his weapon still raised. "How do you know my name?" Jihoon's smile did not fade. "We've had a long time to learn, Commander. 800 years is more than enough time to study. As for your name, your ship has been broadcasting identification signals since you entered our system. We've been listening. Your system?" Thelvos felt anger rising now, covering his fear. "This system belongs to no one. Earth was abandoned, dying." "Earth was never abandoned," Jihoon said softly. "And as you can see, we did not die. We changed instead. Now please lower your weapons. I'm here to invite you to meet with our assembly. They have been waiting to speak with visitors from the Vakreen Empire for a very long time." Thelvos looked at his team. They were all watching him, waiting for orders. He looked back at the human, at the calm confidence in his young face, at the hundreds of lights still surrounding them in the darkness. Slowly, he lowered his weapon. "Very well," he said. "Take us to your assembly. But know this, human. The Vakreen Empire does not take threats lightly." Jihoon nodded, his expression turning serious for the first time. "We don't make threats, Commander. We don't need to. Come. There is much you need to see and much you need to understand. The Earth you remember is gone. What remains is something your empire has never encountered before." He turned and began walking into the forest. After a moment, Thelvos followed, his team close behind. Above them, the stars shone cold and bright, and Thelvos wondered if he had made a terrible mistake in coming here. They walked through the night forest for 3 hours. Jihoon led them along paths that seemed invisible until they were right on top of them. The human moved with easy confidence, never stumbling, never hesitating. Behind him, Thelvos and his team struggled to keep up. Their night vision equipment kept glitching, showing strange readings that made no sense. "Your scanners won't work properly here," Jihoon said without turning around. "Our forests are different now. The trees, the soil, even the air, everything is connected. Everything is monitored. Your technology sees it as interference, but it's really just Earth taking care of itself." "What do you mean, connected?" Thelvos asked, breathing hard. The human seemed tireless while he and his soldiers were already exhausted. "After the collapse, we learned that we couldn't keep living the way we had been," Jihoon explained. "We had to change everything. We built technology that works with nature instead of against it. These trees aren't just trees anymore. They contain sensors, processors, and communication systems, but they're still alive, still growing. The whole planet is like this now. One big living system, and we're part of it." One of Thelvos's scientists made a choking sound. "That's impossible. The computational power alone would require giving up the old ways of thinking," Jihoon finished. "Yes, it took us 200 years just to figure out where to start. Another 300 to actually build it. But we had motivation. We were dying. Change or die, that was the choice. We chose to change." They crested a hill and Thelvos saw their destination, a village nestled in a mountain valley. Small buildings made of wood and stone. Gardens. A stream running through the center. It looked primitive, almost medieval. Nothing like the advanced civilization that could build planet-wide sensor networks. "This is where we're meeting your assembly?" Thelvos asked, not bothering to hide his disappointment. Jihoon smiled. "This is where some of us live. Not everyone wants to live underground or in the ocean. Some of us prefer the old ways. Simple houses. Growing food. It's nice." He led them into the village. "The assembly will join us soon. First, there's someone who wants to meet you." They were taken to a small house near the stream. Inside, an elderly woman sat by a fire, working on some kind of weaving. She looked up as they entered and smiled warmly. Her face was deeply lined, her hair white as snow, but her eyes were sharp and clear. "Commander Thelvos," she said in Vakrine Standard. "Please sit. You must be tired. Jihun, bring our guests some tea." Thelvos sat slowly, his hand still near his weapon. "Who are you?" "My name is Hana," the old woman said. "I'm a remembrancer. I keep the memories of what happened during the collapse. I teach the young ones about the dark times so they never forget what it cost us to survive." "The monuments," Thelvos said. "The billions of names. You remember them?" Hana nodded slowly. "Every single one. Not just me, all the remembrancers across Earth. We carry their stories, their names, their lives. It's important that they're not forgotten." She paused. "Your people came here once before, you know? 800 years ago. 3 of your ships. They stayed for exactly 17 hours. They scanned our planet, decided we were dying and not worth saving, and left." Thelvos said nothing. It was true. The Vakrine only helped species that could offer something in return. Earth had been dying with nothing to give. "After you left, things got worse," Hana continued. "Much worse. The climate collapsed. Billions died. Nations fought wars over the last resources. It looked like humanity would go extinct." She sipped her tea. "But something strange happened. When we were at our very worst, when death seemed certain, we finally came together. All the old divisions, nations, religions, tribes, none of it mattered anymore. We were just humans trying to survive together." "How did you survive?" Thelvos asked despite himself. "We made hard choices," Hana said. Her voice grew quieter. "We changed ourselves, modified our bodies to need less food, less water. We built cities underground and underwater. We learned to share everything, resources, knowledge, even our thoughts through neural networks. We became something new. Not quite the same species that you met 800 years ago." Jihun returned with tea. As he poured, Thelvos noticed something odd about his movements. They were too smooth, too precise, almost mechanical. "You're enhanced," Thelvos said, understanding. "All of you. Cybernetics? Genetic modification?" "Both," Jihun replied, "and more. We've integrated biological and technological systems at a level your empire has never achieved. We had to. It was the only way to survive with limited resources." Thelvos felt uneasy growing in his stomach. "How many of you survived? Your population?" Hana smiled, but there was something sad in it. "That's a complicated question, Commander. Before the collapse, Earth had about 11 billion humans. During the worst years, we lost 9 billion. But now," she paused, "now we have more than we started with. That's impossible," Thelvos snapped. "Our sensors detected only about 2 billion life signs on this planet." "Your sensors are wrong," a new voice said. Thelvos turned to see a young woman entering the house. She was dressed in more modern clothing and she carried a small device in her hand. "I'm Yuna. I work with integration systems. Commander, your sensors are designed to detect biological life. They're very good at it, but they can't properly count humans anymore because we're not entirely biological." "What do you mean?" Thelvos demanded. Yuna tapped her device and a holographic display appeared in the air. It showed Earth from orbit covered in colored dots. "Each dot is a human or a human community. Your sensors missed most of us because we've learned to blend with the environment. Underground cities that your scanners read as natural caves. Ocean settlements that look like coral reefs. Orbital platforms that mimic asteroids. We're everywhere, Commander. All around you. We never left." Thelvos stared at the display. There were millions of dots. "Hundreds of millions. How many?" he whispered. "Current population is approximately 207 billion, Yuna said calmly. "And growing. We've solved the resource problem. We've solved the space problem. We've learned to live efficiently and sustainably. Earth can support far more people than it used to, now that we know how to do it right." The number hit Thelvos like a physical blow. 200 billion. That was more than the entire Vakrine Empire. "On a single planet, but where are your cities?" he asked weakly. "Your ships? Your military?" "All around you," Hana repeated gently. "We just build differently now. Why put up huge buildings when you can live comfortably underground? Why fly massive warships when smaller, smarter vessels work better? We learned that bigger isn't always better, Commander. Sometimes survival means being smart instead of being visible." Jihun knelt beside Thelvos. "We've been watching your empire for a long time. We know about the worlds you've conquered. We know how you operate. You find primitive species and force them to join your empire or destroy them if they resist. It's a simple strategy. It's worked for you many times, but it won't work on Earth," Yuna added. We're not primitive. We're not weak. We're just different. We chose survival through cooperation instead of conquest through force. And we've been preparing for the day when the Vakreen returned. Thelvo stood up suddenly, his weapon drawn. Are you threatening the Vakreen Empire? No, Hana said, still sitting calmly by her fire. We're just being honest with you. We don't want war. We don't want to conquer anyone. We just want to be left alone to live our way. But if your empire tries to force us to submit, we will defend ourselves. And you should know that we've had 800 years to prepare that defense. One planet against an empire of 73 worlds, Thelvo said, but his voice lacked confidence. You cannot win. We don't need to win, Jihun said softly. We just need to make it too expensive for you to attack us. Tell me, Commander, how many ships would your empire sacrifice to conquer Earth? How many soldiers? How many years? Because we're prepared to fight for centuries if we must. We've already survived one apocalypse. We can survive another. Before Thelvos could respond, Yuna spoke again. Commander Minho would like to meet with you. He commands Earth's defense systems. He has something to show you, something that will help you understand exactly what you're dealing with here. Take me to him, Thelvos said. He needed to see more. He needed to understand what Earth had become. And he needed to report back to his superiors. This was not a dying world ready for conquest. This was something else entirely. Something dangerous. Commander Minho appeared without warning. One moment Thelvos was standing in Hana's house. The next moment the air shimmered and a man stepped out of nothing. He looked young, maybe 30 years old in human terms. He wore simple gray clothing and carried no weapons. His smile was friendly, but his eyes were cold and calculating. Commander Thelvos, Minho said in perfect Vakreen. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. Please come with me. I have a ship waiting. A ship? Thelvos looked around. Where? I see nothing. Right outside, Minho replied. He walked to the door and gestured. After you. Thelvos stepped outside and froze. Hanging in the air above the village was a ship. It had not been there before. He was certain of it. His sensors should have detected it. His team should have sounded alarms. But there it was, floating silently in the night sky. It was smooth and dark, shaped like a teardrop. No visible engines, no lights, no sound. How long has that been there? Thelvos demanded. About 3 hours, Minho said casually. Since you arrived in the village. We've been watching your reactions, learning how you think. You're very predictable, Commander. Your species follows patterns. It makes you easier to understand. Thelvos felt anger and fear mixing in his chest. You've been studying us? For 800 years, Minho confirmed. Ever since your first visit. We knew you would come back eventually. Conquerors always return to check on worlds they've dismissed. So we prepared. We watched your empire expand. We intercepted your communications. We learned your languages, your technology, your tactics. We know everything about you, Commander. Everything. They boarded the ship through a door that appeared in the hull. Inside, the vessel was unlike anything Thelvos had seen. The walls seemed alive, shifting slightly. The floor felt organic under his feet. Control systems were minimal, just a few displays showing information in human script. Minho sat in what looked like a command chair, and the ship lifted smoothly into the air. There was no sense of motion, no engine vibration. They simply rose up through the atmosphere and into space. My flagship is detecting you now, Thelvos said, checking his personal communicator. They're targeting your ship. Let them try, Minho replied without concern. Watch. On the displays, Thelvos could see his own flagship attempting to lock weapons onto Minho's vessel. The targeting systems kept failing. The scanners showed the ship in 5 different locations at once. The weapons refused to fire, giving error messages in Vakreen script. Your technology operates on principles we mastered 400 years ago, Minho explained. We've had plenty of time to develop countermeasures. Your ships can't hurt us because they can't properly see us. We exist in multiple states simultaneously. Quantum positioning. Your empire hasn't figured it out yet. The ship accelerated, moving away from Earth. Within minutes, they were at the edge of the solar system. Minho stopped the vessel and turned to face Thelvos directly. I'm going to show you some things, Commander. Things that will frighten you. I'm doing this because I want you to understand exactly what Earth has become. I want you to take this information back to your empire. And I want your leaders to make a very careful decision about what happens next. He activated the main display, and suddenly Thelvos was looking at images he should never have seen. blueprints of Vakrine warships, detailed schematics showing every system, every weakness, battle plans from conflicts that were supposed to be classified, personnel files of high-ranking Vakrine officials, communication logs from the Vakrine High Command itself. How did you get these? Thelvos whispered. We've been inside your networks for 400 years, Minho said. Every major Vakrine computer system has human code hidden in it. Code that watches, learns, and reports back to us. Your empire never even knew we were there. You were too confident. Too sure that primitive Earth could never threaten you. A new image appeared. It showed the Vakrine homeworld from orbit. Thelvos recognized the 3 moons, the purple clouds, the massive cities covering the continents. That's real time, Minho said. We're watching your homeworld right now. This very second, we have eyes on every major Vakrine installation in your empire. 53 worlds, hundreds of military bases, thousands of ships. We see everything. Thelvos felt sick. Why? Why do all this? Because we learned a lesson 800 years ago, Minho replied, his voice hard now. We learned that the galaxy is dangerous, that other species will destroy you if you're weak, that no one will help you unless you can help yourself. So we made ourselves strong. Not through conquest, we don't want your worlds, but through knowledge and preparation, we made sure that if anyone ever threatened Earth again, we would be ready. Another woman entered the command area. She was young, with sharp eyes and military bearing. Commander Thelvos, I'm Soman. I coordinate tactical analysis for Earth's defense systems. She pulled up more displays. Let me explain what would happen if your empire decided to attack Earth. The displays showed simulations. Vakrine fleets approaching Earth, battle scenarios playing out. But in every simulation, the result was the same. The Vakrine ships were destroyed or disabled before they could fire a shot. First, your communications would fail, Somin explained. We control the quantum frequencies your ships use to talk to each other. Second, your weapon systems would malfunction. We've had 800 years to study Vakrine weapons technology. We know how to make them fail. Third, your navigation would be compromised. Your ships would find themselves off course, unable to reach Earth. She pulled up another set of images, but we wouldn't just defend Earth. We would disable your entire empire. Every world would find its computer systems compromised. Every ship would lose coordination. Every military base would go dark. We wouldn't kill millions of Vakrine. We don't want that. But we would dismantle your ability to function as an empire. We would break you. You're bluffing, Thelvos said, but his voice shook. No single planet could do this to an entire empire. We're not a single planet anymore, Minho said. He stood and walked to a window. Outside, space itself seemed to shimmer. Look closer, Commander. Use your military scanners. Thelvos activated his equipment and nearly dropped it in shock. What he had thought was empty space was actually full of objects. Thousands of them. Satellites, weapons platforms, ships. They had been invisible to his sensors until Minho allowed them to be seen. This is just one location, Minho said quietly. We have installations like this throughout the solar system. And beyond. You see, Commander, we didn't just rebuild Earth, we expanded quietly, carefully over 800 years. We have colonies on 12 worlds. We have mining operations in 3-star systems. We have research stations in places your empire has never explored. Earth is just our home. It's not our only presence in the galaxy. Thelvos stared at the display showing all the hidden human installations. Why tell me this? Why reveal yourself? Because we want you to make a choice, Soman said. A real choice based on facts. Your empire can leave us alone. You can mark the Sol system as off-limits and never return. If you do that, you'll never hear from us again. We'll stay in our space. You stay in yours. Everyone lives, or, Thelvos asked. Or you attack, Minho finished. You send your fleets. You try to conquer Earth like you've conquered 73 other worlds. And we respond. We dismantle your empire. We free the worlds you've subjugated. We introduce them to the technologies we've developed. We change the balance of power in this entire region of the galaxy. He turned to face Thelvos directly. We don't want that. War is wasteful, destructive. We had enough of that during our collapse. But if you force us to fight, we will. And we will win. Thelvos looked at all the evidence spread before him. The stolen intelligence, the hidden fleets, the advanced technology. Everything pointed to the same conclusion. Earth was not a primitive world. It was a trap that had been waiting for 800 years for the Vakrine to return. I need to contact my superiors, Thelvos said finally. They need to know about this. Of course, Minho agreed. He gestured and suddenly Thelvos's communicator activated on its own. A direct channel opened to the Vakrine flagship. Tell them everything you've seen. Tell them the truth. And then wait for their decision, because what happens next will determine the future of both our species. The ship began moving back toward Earth. Thelvos stood in silence, trying to process everything he had learned. His empire had made a terrible mistake 800 years ago. They had dismissed humanity as weak and dying. They had never imagined that desperation could forge something so dangerous. Now the bill had come due, and Thelvos had no idea if his people would be wise enough to pay it. Thelvos made his report to the Vakrine High Command. He told them everything he had seen. The restored planet. The hidden population of 200 billion. The advanced technology. The stolen intelligence. He sent them all the data Minho had shown him. All the evidence of Earth's capabilities. The response came back within hours. The High Command did not believe him. They called him a coward. They said he had been tricked by primitive human deceptions. They accused him of exaggerating the threat to justify his own fear. Worst of all, they relieved him of command and ordered him to remain on Earth while a new fleet was prepared. I tried to warn them, Thelvos said to Ji-hoon, as they stood on a mountain overlooking the Valley of Monuments. I gave them all the evidence. They refused to see the truth. People often refuse to see what frightens them, Ji-hoon replied. He looked tired, sad. We hoped your leaders would be wise, that they would choose peace. But we prepared for this possibility too. What will you do when the fleet arrives? Thelvos asked. We will try one more time to make them understand, Ji-hoon said. We will show them very clearly what will happen if they attack. And then we will give them one final chance to leave peacefully. 3 weeks later, the Vakrine battle fleet arrived. 132 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. It was a massive force, representing nearly a quarter of the entire Vakrine military. The fleet commander, Admiral Kelvar, sent a simple message to Earth. Primitive humans, you will surrender immediately and accept Vakrine rule. Any resistance will result in the complete destruction of your world. You have 1 hour to comply. On Earth, in a command center hidden deep beneath the restored forests, a man named Taehyung watched the Vakrine fleet on his displays. He was old, over 600 years by the human calendar, one of the survivors from the collapse era. He had lived through the worst times. He had seen billions die. He had helped build the new Earth from the ashes of the old, and now he commanded Earth's defense systems. Send our response, Taehyung said calmly to his team. Make sure every Vakrine ship receives it. The message went out on all frequencies. It was not a surrender. It was a demonstration. Admiral Kelvar was reviewing his battle plans when every screen on his flagship went dark. Then they lit up again, showing a simple text message in perfect Vakrine script. We do not want war. We will not surrender. We ask you to leave in peace. But if you attack, we will respond. This is your only warning, Kelvar laughed. Empty threats from a primitive world. All ships advance. Prepare to... His orders were cut off as every system on every Vakrine ship began to malfunction. Weapon systems powered down and refused to restart. The targeting computers started showing error messages in human script. The navigation systems went crazy, telling each ship it was in a different location. Life support flickered, making the lights dim and the air recyclers sputter. On the flagship bridge, officers ran frantically between consoles trying to regain control. Nothing worked. The Vakrine ships hung in space, completely helpless. Then Taehyung's voice spoke from every speaker on every Vakrine vessel. We told you this would happen. Your ships are now under our control. We have not harmed anyone. We have not destroyed anything. We are simply showing you what we can do. Watch. One of the Vakrine destroyers, the Fierce Talon, suddenly began moving. Its engines fired without commands from the crew. The ship turned and flew in a perfect circle around the fleet. Then it stopped exactly where it had started. We can control your ships, Taehyung's voice explained. We can move them. We can shut them down. We can make them do whatever we want. And we can do this to every Vakrine vessel in your empire. Not just the ones here, all of them everywhere, another demonstration. A cruiser's weapon systems activated and targeted empty space. The guns fired, shooting at nothing, wasting ammunition. Then they stopped. We can fire your weapons, Taehyung continued. We can empty your ammunition. We can make your ships destroy each other if we choose. But we don't want to hurt you. We just want you to understand. The life support systems on the flagship fluctuated again. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in seconds, then rose back to normal. The lights went off completely for 5 seconds of terrifying darkness, then came back on. "We can control your life support," Taehyung said. "We could kill every Vakrine in this fleet right now without firing a single shot. We could suffocate you, freeze you. We have that power, but we choose not to use it." Admiral Kelvar stood on his bridge, his hands shaking. He had fought in 23 battles across the galaxy. He had never been afraid before. Now he was terrified. Why? He managed to transmit. "Why not just destroy us if you can?" "Because destruction is easy," a new voice replied. It was Hana, the old remembrancer. Her face appeared on every Vakrine screen. She looked ancient and sad. "Killing is easy. We learned that during our collapse. Billions died because killing was easier than cooperating. We don't want to repeat that mistake. We want to live differently. We want to build instead of destroy. Even now, even when you came here to conquer us, we choose not to kill you." She paused, looking directly into the camera. "Your empire has conquered 73 worlds. You force primitive species to submit, or you destroy them. It's what you do. It's who you are. But that's not who we are anymore. We survived by learning to cooperate, by helping each other, by refusing to give in to hate and violence even when things were at their worst. We won't start killing now just because you threaten us." "Then what do you want?" Kelvar asked. "We want you to leave," Hana said simply. "We want you to go back to your empire and tell your leaders the truth. Earth is not a world you can conquer. We are strong enough to defend ourselves. We are advanced enough to threaten your entire empire. But we are also wise enough to not want war. Go home, Admiral. Take your fleet and go home. Never come back to this system. That's all we ask." "And if we refuse?" Kelvar asked. Taehyung's voice returned. "Then we stop being nice. Right now we're just showing you what we can do. We haven't hurt anyone, but if you force us to fight, we will dismantle your empire. Every Vakrine world will find its systems compromised. Every ship will be disabled. Every military installation will go dark. We will free the 73 worlds you've conquered and help them defend themselves against you. Within weeks, the Vakrine Empire will cease to exist, not because we destroyed you, but because we took away your ability to function." On the displays, new images appeared, detailed battle plans showing exactly how Earth would break the Vakrine Empire, step by step, system by system, world by world. It was thorough, efficient, and absolutely terrifying. "We've had 800 years to plan this," Taehyung said. 800 years to prepare. Every Vakrine computer system has human code hidden in it. Every ship has vulnerabilities we can exploit. We know your supply lines, your communication protocols, your military strategies. We know everything. And if you force us to use this knowledge, we will." Soman's face appeared on the screens. "Admiral, we don't hate you. We don't hate the Vakrine Empire. We understand why you do what you do. Expansion, conquest, it's a survival strategy. Many species follow it, but it won't work on Earth. We're different. We're stronger than we look, and we're asking you politely to respect that." The Vakrine fleet hung in space, completely helpless. Officers looked at their admiral, waiting for orders. Kelvar looked at his screens, at the evidence of humanity's power, at the detailed plans for his empire's destruction. He had a choice to make. He could order his fleet to attack, hoping that somehow the humans were bluffing, or he could accept the truth. Earth was not a primitive world. It was something the Vakrine Empire had never encountered before. A species that chose cooperation over conquest. A species that was strong enough to defend itself but wise enough to offer peace. "How long do we have to decide?" Kelvar asked finally. 24 hours, Taehyung replied. "After that, we assume you've chosen war, and we respond accordingly. Choose wisely, Admiral. Your decision will determine the fate of your entire empire." The 24 hours passed slowly. Admiral Kelvar spent most of that time in his command quarters, reviewing all the data the humans had provided. He looked at the battle plans, the intelligence reports, the detailed analysis of Vakrine weaknesses. Everything pointed to the same conclusion. If the Vakrine attacked Earth, they would lose. Not quickly, but certainly. The humans had prepared too well. Some of his captains argued for attack anyway. They said the humans must be bluffing. No single world could truly threaten an empire. But Kelvar had seen the demonstrations. He had felt his own ship taken from his control. He had watched helplessly as the humans did whatever they wanted to his fleet. That was not a bluff. That was real power. When the deadline arrived, Kelvar made his decision. He opened a channel to Earth. "This is Admiral Kelvar of the Vakreen Empire," he said formally. "We have considered your demonstration. We accept your terms. The fleet will withdraw from this system. We will report to High Command that Earth is not suitable for integration into the Empire." There was a pause. Then Taehyung's voice replied, "Thank you, Admiral. Your ship's systems will be fully restored within the hour. You are free to leave whenever you're ready. We hope this is the last time our species meet in conflict." But before Kelvar could respond, one of his junior officers spoke up. "Sir, several ships are requesting permission to stay. They want to ask Earth for asylum." Kelvar turned in surprise. "What? Which ships?" "The Wandering Star, the Deep Explorer, and the Morning Light," the officer reported. "Their captains say they are disgusted with the Empire's aggressive policies. They want to leave Vakreen service and live peacefully. They're asking Earth for sanctuary." Kelvar considered this. 3 ships. Good ships. Experienced crews. But he understood their feeling. He felt it too after seeing what humanity had built. The Vakreen way, conquest and domination, suddenly seemed primitive compared to Earth's approach. "Let them stay if Earth accepts them," Kelvar said finally. "I won't force people to serve an empire they no longer believe in." Hana's voice came over the channel. "We will welcome anyone who chooses peace over conquest. The captains and crews of those ships may come to Earth. We will help them build new lives here if that's what they want." Over the next few hours, nearly 200 Vakreen left the fleet. They took shuttles down to Earth's surface, ready to start over. Among them was a young officer named Thren, who would later become one of the first Vakreen to fully integrate with Earth's neural network systems. Thelvos, the original commander who had tried to warn the High Command, chose to stay on Earth as well. He requested a meeting with Ji-hoon before the fleet departed. They met in the Valley of Monuments, surrounded by the names of the billions who had died during the collapse. "I have a question," Thelvos said. "Why did you spare us? You could have destroyed the fleet, made an example of us. Instead, you let us go. Why?" Ji-hoon looked at the black monuments around them. "Because we remember what hate and violence cost us. These names, every single one of them, they died because we forgot how to cooperate. Because we chose fighting over talking. We almost went extinct because of that mistake." He turned to Thelvos. "We survived by learning to be different, by choosing peace even when war seemed easier. We won't throw away that lesson now. But what if the Vakreen return?" Thelvos asked. "What if the High Command decides to try again with a bigger fleet? Then we'll demonstrate again," Ji-hoon said calmly. And again if necessary. We'll keep showing them that war with Earth is pointless. Eventually they'll learn, or they'll collapse under their own weight. Either way, we'll be ready." "You're very confident," Thelvos observed. "We're very patient," Ji-hoon corrected. "We've had 800 years to learn patience. We can wait for your empire to change. We can wait for centuries if we must. Time is on our side. We're not going anywhere." The Vakreen fleet departed the Sol system 12 hours after the deadline. They jumped to faster than light speed and vanished, returning to their empire with news that would shake Vakreen society to its core. Some Vakreen leaders refused to believe the reports. They called Kelvar a coward and a liar, but when Vakreen intelligence teams tried to access their own secure systems, they found human code everywhere, code that had been there for centuries, watching and waiting. That evidence could not be denied. The Vakreen Empire did not fall immediately, but it changed. Over the following decades, the aggressive expansion slowed. Some conquered worlds were given independence. The Empire became more cautious, more careful about which species they challenged. Earth had taught them a lesson they could not ignore. On Earth itself, life continued peacefully. The planet thrived. The population grew. Human colonies in other systems expanded slowly and carefully. They never conquered other worlds. They never forced anyone to join them. They simply lived their way and defended themselves when necessary. 100 years after the Vakreen incident, stories about Earth had spread across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Some species dismissed the stories as myths. Others investigated and found them to be true. A few tried to test Earth's defenses and learned very quickly that the stories were accurate. Earth was not to be challenged lightly. Young alien civilizations, those just discovering space travel, heard a saying that spread from world to world. "If you want glory, fight the conquerors. If you want wisdom, learn from the humans, but never think their kindness means weakness. Earth remembers everything. Earth forgets nothing." Ji-hoon, now over 300 years old thanks to human longevity treatments, continued his work as an integration specialist. He taught new generations of humans about first contact protocols, about diplomacy, about the careful balance between strength and wisdom. One day, a student named Nari asked him a question that every generation asked. Will we ever be safe? Will there ever be a time when we don't need to prepare for threats? Ji-hoon stood at a window overlooking one of Earth's restored forests. Somewhere beneath those trees were cities housing billions. Somewhere in orbit were defense platforms waiting silently. Somewhere in hidden dimensions were weapons that would hopefully never be used. Safety is not a place you reach, Ji-hoon said finally. It's something you practice every day. We prepare not because we're afraid, but because we're responsible. We survived the collapse because we learned to think ahead, to plan, to work together. Those lessons kept us alive. We won't forget them now, but don't we want peace? Nari asked. Real peace, where we don't need weapons and defenses. We have peace, Ji-hoon replied. We're not at war. We're not conquering anyone. We're just living our lives and protecting our right to exist. That's peace. Not perfect peace that doesn't exist in a dangerous galaxy. But real peace. Practical peace. The kind you can actually maintain. Nari thought about this. The Vakreen could come back. They could, Ji-hoon agreed. Or another empire might find us. Or something worse. The galaxy is big and full of surprises. But we'll be ready. We're always ready. That's what it means to be human now. We remember what happened when we weren't prepared. We remember the billions who died. And we honor their memory by making sure it never happens again. He smiled at his student. Besides, we're not just preparing to defend ourselves anymore. We're also preparing to help others. There are species out there right now going through their own collapses, facing their own extinctions. When they're ready, when they ask for help, we'll share what we've learned. We'll teach them how to survive like we did. That's the real future, Nari, not conquest, not isolation, but careful, thoughtful cooperation with anyone who chooses peace. Far across the galaxy, in the central chambers of the Vakreen High Command, officials reviewed reports about Earth for the 1,000th time. They had tried to verify the humans' claims. They had found evidence everywhere. Human code in their systems. Human observers on their worlds. Human technology far beyond what the Vakreen had achieved. The Vakreen Empire had a choice. They could keep trying to dominate the galaxy through force, or they could adapt like humanity had adapted. They could learn to cooperate instead of conquer. It would take time. It would require admitting mistakes. It would mean changing everything about how Vakreen society worked. But the alternative was clear. Keep fighting and eventually face the full force of human defensive capabilities, or change and survive. On Earth, Ji-hoon stood with his student and watched the sun set over the restored world. 200 billion humans lived on this planet and its orbital structures. Trillions more lived in the solar system. Millions in colonies across other star systems. All of them connected through neural networks. All of them working together. All of them remembering the lessons learned through centuries of suffering. The galaxy had empires. It had conquerors. It had species that dominated through force, but now it also had something different. It had Earth. And Earth would never be conquered again. Humans had made their choice 800 years ago, when the Vakreen first dismissed them as dying and primitive. They had chosen to survive, to change, to become something new, something stronger not through weapons alone, but through cooperation, preparation, and the wisdom to know when to fight and when to offer peace. That choice had saved them, and now it would influence the entire galaxy, one species at a time, as the message spread outward from Earth into the infinite dark. The age of easy conquest was ending. A new age was beginning, an age where species like humanity showed that there was another way to survive among the stars, not through domination but through strength earned by patience, wisdom gained through suffering, and the determination to never forget what it cost to learn these lessons. Earth remembered. Earth prepared, Earth survived, and the galaxy would never be the same.